Choices. We hear that word over and over again. We use it as if it was nothing special. I chose to be here today because I want to spread my message, and I chose to wear this because I feel comfortable in it. But what are choices really? For me, there are different kinds of choices. Each choice has its own character. I believe that we can distinguish between little choices, which are easy to make and don't really have a significant impact in our life, and there are big choices that have a much greater impact on our life, such as getting married or deciding to have children. We also experience accidents and illnesses. These things happen and we have absolutely no power over them. Some things cannot be foreseen and they happen whether we like it or not. But what about a mental illness like anorexia? Does an anorexic person decide to become ill, to lose weight, and to look like a skeleton? Many people do believe so. They think it's someone's own fault, a conscious choice. But let me tell you, mental illnesses are just as unexpected and undesired as cancer. No one decides to become ill. I think most of us want to be happy and healthy, don't we? It doesn't even make sense to say someone chose to be anorexic and thus chose to be ill. The only thing a sufferer can decide is whether to get a treatment and whether to fight or to give up. Anorexia is the mental illness with the highest mortality rate, mainly due to heart failure or suicide. Eating disorders shouldn't be underestimated or romanticized. So, why am I here telling you this? I want you to take 1 second and look at this picture on the screen. What pops straight into your mind when you look at that girl? Are you shocked? Disgusted? Do you even think this picture can't be real and it is photoshopped? How would you react if a girl, looking like this, walked past you? Would you stare at her? Would you tell your friend she looked disgusting? Would you wonder why she just doesn't eat? Well, this picture you see here is me when I was 16. I suffered from severe and apparently chronic anorexia myself. Over the course of 7 years, I experienced hell through anorexia's vicious circle. It was never my choice. Before I dive into my idea of spreading, I'll try and quickly explain my story. It all started in my childhood. When I was 5, I was terrified of losing my mom and my grandma, of never seeing them again and being left alone. These worries caused me stomach aches, and I always cried before I had to go to school by myself. I only went if my grandma came with me. Doctors didn't find a cause for these stomach aches. They were psychosomatic. When I was 8, I had this episode of controlling myself through my weight and eating habits. Not even because I wanted to lose weight, but I liked the idea of being in control of myself and my body. When I was 12, I experienced these childhood stomach aches again. Due to these aches, I gradually stopped eating. I wasn't hungry anymore, and I totally lost the orientation of how much I needed and how many times a day I should eat. So I started to count calories in order to get a healthy eating habit again, but I totally failed it. As a 12-year-old, I had absolutely no idea how many calories I actually need. So I started to eat only about half of the recommended amount, and it felt good because I wasn't hungry and I didn't realize or didn't feel like I was starving myself. So I lost weight, quite a lot in a short period of time. And as the weight dropped, the desire to control myself grew. The unhealthy perfectionism grew. There was this little anorexia in me that slowly but surely grew more and more. The more weight I lost, the bigger anorexia got. I started to make rules. First, it was only one: not eating more than X calories. Then more and more rules followed: not eating unhealthy when alone, not eating when alone, eliminating any fat in my diet, hiding food or throwing it away so my mom wouldn't notice. Keeping to these rules made me feel proud of myself. Especially the aspect of calories made me feel heroic. I realized I was good at something others weren't. I could control myself. I didn't even realize how much weight I had lost at the time. I remember how my grandma literally grabbed me and put me on the scales one day, and I saw that number and I was shocked. I was shocked by how little I weighed. At that moment, I had told myself I would change things again, I would eat normally again. But unfortunately, anorexia was already too strong and too present. I tried, but I couldn't. I started to go to doctors' offices frequently, but they don't really thought I was anorexic because I denied the desire to lose weight. So I continued living with this voice inside my head, and I continued losing weight. And I actually didn't even want to. I think the best way to represent my mindset back then is if you imagine that there was a tiny devil inside me, anorexia, and also a tiny angel, me. The angel wanted to do everything to make me gain the weight back, to be pretty, to be normal, to be healthy. The devil, however, wants me to starve myself, control myself, and make me fade away. During the days, I always felt so guilty to eat. I didn't allow myself to eat. The devil didn't allow me to eat. In the evenings, the angel came back and told me I have to change it. I do need to eat again. But I agreed on postponing the meal till the next day. But the next day never came, and the vicious circle of anorexia continued. You know, through anorexia, I didn't only lose weight. I lost much more. I lost all emotions, and I lost the joy of life, for living. I lived kind of in a bubble. I hid myself in the center of the bubble, and I was all by myself. I saw things with a blurry view, but I didn't really participate in life anymore. And I didn't let anyone too close to me. I mean, how could I let anyone to my precious bubble? The bubble would burst, and thus I would be exposed. Me and anorexia would be exposed. I was actually quite stable at a point, but in June 2012, the worst thing happened to me. My grandma passed away, my second mom, who I loved over everything. I used to see her every single day, and when I heard the message, I couldn't believe what happened. I realized I could never see her again. I mean, the day before she died, I saw her and we were walking in the woods, and I had told her I would sleep over at hers the following week, as I always felt so sorry for her being all alone. And then I just realized I could never see her again, not even say goodbye or tell her that I would be fine, that she doesn't need to worry anymore. So her loss caused an increase in the downward spiral. I felt torn apart, depressed. I couldn't go to school for over 2 weeks and I didn't want to see anyone. From that moment on, anorexia was the only thing that existed. My life was even more determined by rules. The urge of controlling myself was the strongest. I just hated the way I looked, the fact that I was so weak. I simply hated my life. As I said, I never really liked being skinny, and I hated the devil inside me, but I couldn't break my own rules. I couldn't recover. It was impossible for me. I was so consumed, so weak, and so drained. Anorexia got so strong, and I was so weak, and I couldn't fight her. This illness is just so complex and complicated. It's simply impossible to put in words what it does to you or to your mind. If you've never suffered from an illness like that, you simply cannot imagine how it feels like, how an illness can control you. So my weight hit the lowest spot, and I was basically half dead. In October 2014, I had to go inpatient for real, which meant completing a whole program at hospital. I was terrified, scared of changing my habits, scared of being left alone in a hospital, scared of losing my friends in my country. By now, not even my mom had anything to say. The decision was made by the doctors, and I couldn't do anything about it, despite me even threatening to kill myself if they forced me to go. After 10 months, I had reached a reasonable weight. I mean, I wasn't a healthy weight, but at least I wasn't near to death. I went home, determined to continue with the progress. I could accept the weight gain quite easily because it never really was about my weight. I simply cared about the numbers. And yes, it was difficult to go over certain borders, but as I was forced to regain the weight and didn't have any choice, it wasn't as difficult for me to accept it once I went over these borders. At home, though, it was back to my daily routines, which meant back to my rules. I started to be stricter with calories again, time my meals, only eating healthy food, etc. These rules were exactly the same as before, but just with a higher number on the scales and determination not to lose too much so that I wouldn't be hospitalized again. I managed to continue undetected, kidding myself that everything was okay. It was a year later that I finally realized I just couldn't go on like this. I was 18 years old, had suffered from anorexia for over 6 years, and simply had enough. My days literally consisted of planning food, weighing food, and counting calories. Every single almond I ate, or even every single salad leaf, needed to be weighed and calculated. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but I had to do it. With the process of recovery, I started feeling again. And this sounds pathetic, I know, but as I mentioned, you simply don't have any feelings if you lose too much weight. You feel empty, you are empty. You are anorexia. You aren't yourself anymore. This gain of feelings caused me to realize that there is more to life than just anorexia, that there are other things in my life that could give me satisfaction and happiness. I really got the determination and that willpower to recover and to be healthy. I started with the rules, eliminating them one by one. I also got together with my boyfriend at the time who gave me this final realization of recovery. Like I realized I just couldn't go on like this. I realized I couldn't continue with planning and counting calories when I was 30. I started to gain weight, and by every pound I gained, anorexia became smaller and smaller. Things that were so difficult at the beginning and caused me a lot of guilt got easier and easier. I discovered all these feelings back, such as real happiness and love. I was, and I am, recovered. By now, I'm 20 and I look much younger because of my past. And it feels amazing, though, to finally have enough energy. I mean, I really feel that energy and power in my body. It feels amazing to know that there's a future in front of me when a few years ago I didn't really look forward to anything in my life and couldn't imagine continuing living. It feels amazing to live my life and achieve my goals. Anorexia had a significant impact on my life and on my health. It made me who I am, but I don't need it anymore. It's over. I've come so far because I chose to. I chose to recover and I chose to leave anorexia behind. I chose to finally live my life. So many, myself included, give up, thinking they are not strong enough. Although they are determined to do something against anorexia's will, they feel too guilty afterwards and immediately stop. That is exactly the critical moment. You simply cannot just stop because something feels uncomfortable or difficult. That's exactly the moment when you need to push yourself even harder to keep going and to keep shutting that voice down. Recovering from anorexia is not just about eating and being a healthy weight. Actually, recovery or real recovery only starts once you fit a reasonable weight because only then you can work on your mindset. It needs a hell lot of determination, willpower, and strength. But if the choice comes from within, it is possible. And if I manage to beat this deadly, evil eating disorder, then you will manage to beat any obstacles you encounter in your life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't true. Thank you for listening.